Smack that all on the floor, smack that till you get sore, smack that till you get sore, smack that, oh, smack that.
Today we're talking about the controversial sport on the rise, slap fighting.
Yep, it's exactly what you think it is, and the hits are very hard.
Slap fighting has gained traction in underground and online circles, with a recent push for recognition in the sporting world. This movement is supported by the establishment of official federations, seeking to legitimize it alongside traditional combat sports like MMA. In January 2023, Dana White, CEO of the UFC, launched Powerslap, a slap fighting league along with a reality show titled Road to the Title, where competitors live together and compete for the official championship title. Although the official launch of the show was underwhelming and it ultimately did not get renewed for a second season, there's no denying the sport's potential to attract attention. The show continues to air on streaming platforms like Rumble, allowing it to maintain a presence despite the controversy surrounding it. Viral clips draw huge views, leading many media companies to see it as a lucrative opportunity to cash in on the public's fascination with violence. But at what cost?
I think it's one of the most just senseless, unnecessarily risky and dangerous sports.
There is heavy criticism, particularly amongst the medical community, concerned about the long-term head trauma implications, and even by some combat sports pros about the stupidity of the sport, if it can even be considered that. Though it may seem comically outrageous, the impact of some of these blows and the damage that they inflict on the fighters is no laughing matter. Many people overlook the less obvious health risks that occur underneath the surface amid the spectacle of these outrageous matches. We're talking concussions, CTE, and brain damage.
That's the brain being jarred inside the skull.
What makes it so dangerous is that unlike other combat sports, there is no way for competitors to protect themselves, turning it into a game of brutal beatdown with little to no real skill involved. Basically, who can get hit the most and remain standing? But again, in what condition? I'm Dr. Chris, orthopedic surgeon, and today we'll explore the health implications of slap fighting, particularly regarding brain injuries. We'll also examine how social factors like media exploitation contribute to the issue and discuss whether legitimizing the sport is making it any safer. An article by the Independent UK explains that a slap was once seen as a quick beneficial shock, even used by 19th century doctors to treat women with hysteria. The term bitch slap, originally referring to an actual blow, has evolved to signify a successful put down or display of authority, and at its roots, that is exactly what slap fighting is about, a sheer display of dominance. YouTuber Alex Marslin did a deep dive on the topic and found that it has Russian origins. Why am I not surprised by that at all?
The sport then spread into Eastern Europe.
Sort of the underbelly of Eastern Europe, I understand.
It was.
It then spread across Europe and gained popularity through a series of viral videos, especially those featuring Vasily Kamatsky, known as Dumpling. Cutesy name for an absolute beast of a man.
Kamotiski was seen in one video knocking a massive opponent unconscious to win 30,000 rubles.
Official competitions began to emerge, garnering significant online attention, which led to Arnold Schwarzenegger and Logan Paul bringing the sport to the US for its Western debut at the Arnold Sports Festival in 2022.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is a big fan.
Who's the toughest? Who can take it, right?
With big shots like Arnold, Logan, and Dana supporting it, virality surged even higher. Everyone grab your popcorn.
She's got this form nailed down. Her chin is tucked.
I mean, does this seem like a good idea to you? This competitor shows up to the event already swollen and continues to get pummeled for another 20 minutes. Like, bro, jeez. While the risks may seem obvious in a scene like that, bruising and possible facial bone structures, the risks often lie beneath the surface and aren't as apparent.
The fact that these people are getting injured and we can't see it, the fact that they seem normal after when they wake up and recover, makes us seem like there's not something serious going on. But I can tell you, underneath in the brain, there are permanent and serious changes happening.
The impression that it's harmless is further influenced by our historical association of the slap as a display of dominance rather than an act meant to injure.
We would see if people were just being punched straight in the face, we'd see teeth flying out, we would see blood. That would change our appetite for this activity.
Sports medicine physician Brian Sutterer puts it well. There's a false sense of benignity surrounding slap fighting because it can appear silly. And many of us don't view slaps as damaging as punches. While a slap delivered safely with an open hand is generally less harmful, most of what happens in these competitions resembles open-handed punches.
If you strike somebody with more the hard bones of the wrist or the carpus, is really no different than just punching someone.
What makes this uniquely dangerous is that the fighters can't protect themselves. As mentioned in the BBC article on slap fighting, there's no headgear, no defense, and no flinching allowed. Opponents are scored solely on the damage they inflict and how well they handle getting slapped.
This takes the element of fighting down to the absolute basics, which is who can tolerate the most injury.
This is new territory in sports where someone can just wind up and hit you with an unprotected hand. And the slap, since it impacts the side of the head, may actually be worse for a few reasons. Number one, it can cause hearing damage, which is why fighters stuff cotton in their ears.
There's a tremendous amount of force that gets imparted into the ear canal that can rupture the eardrum.
This can take up to months to heal. And number two, the rotational acceleration of the head, which as neuroscientist Chris Nowinski explains, can amplify the brain injury.
It makes the brain injury actually worse than if they just punched you in the face.
Instead of just bang, it's like bang and a scramble. And this is something that happens over and over and over, each time with a direct hit. Unlike boxing or MMA, where the goal is to avoid getting hit, in slap fighting, you can't escape it.
In slap, they take 3 to 5 slaps per event. Fighters in boxing take 300 to 400 punches a fight.
He ultimately resorts to saying, if you don't like it, don't watch, which reveals a weak justification for its safety. Again, let's give a shout out to our resident YouTube investigator, Alex Marsland, for pointing out this argument. Boxers don't actually land that many hard punches. Rather, they're trained to camouflage their shots to set up for a big hit. If they wind up too much, their opponent can easily anticipate it and dodge it.
It's therefore a complex skill to land a massive hit with a person's full force behind it.
Which is why it doesn't happen often. In slap fighting, on the other hand, those hits happen repeatedly, and all the other person can do is brace for impact. And it's only going to get worse since the damage can only accumulate.
It looks like Ed and Eddie when they have jawbreakers in their mouth. His whole face has been distorted by these slaps. I saw someone say that he got slapped so hard he turned into Nintendo 64 graphics.
While Dana says it's only a few slaps, bro, some slap federations don't impose strict limits on how long the battles can last. In contrast, boxing typically has a standardized maximum of 12 rounds. In these long drawn-out slap fights, because the damage keeps accumulating, when a knockout occurs, it almost guarantees a concussion, glorifying it in a way as a significant aspect of a fighter's success. That is, the ability to absorb damage. Whereas in other combat sports, it's more of an unfortunate side effect.
There are multiple ways for you to win or lose an event when it comes to combat sports. Tap out, knockout, technical knockout, judge's decision, for example. Here, when it comes to slap league or any kind of slapping sport, the unconsciousness is a key element to success.
It's valuable to have someone like Dr. Hillsden speak on this topic, since he's had first-hand experience treating these injuries. He explains that if you've been knocked out, you've undergone some form of neurological change and are likely experiencing a neurological deficit, or in other words, brain damage. Sometimes it's mild. Concussions are one of the primary health risks associated with the sport.
A blow to the head resulting in some neurological symptom that doesn't have an associated intracranial pathology that we see on imaging.
This can result in memory loss, headaches, difficulty with thinking, concentration or balance problems, nausea, blurred vision, dizziness, sleep disturbances, and mood changes. Clinically, concussions can present in various ways, leading to short or long-term disabilities and socioeconomic distress. In the first academic study to assess the dangers of slap fighting, the analysis of 78 fights involving 56 contestants and 333 slaps sparked important discussions. The study found that by the end of the matches, nearly 80% of the fighters showed visible signs of concussion at least once during the matches. matches. On top of that, nearly 40% of sequences showed signs of poor motor coordination, about 1/3 displayed participants with a blank, vacant look, and a quarter had fighters slow to get up after a blow. As Dr. Nowinski noted earlier, the rotational acceleration caused by twisting the head can lead to the stretching and tearing of axons, the connections between neurons and parts of the brain, which typically don't heal well.
So you may recover function, but once you've lost brain tissue, it's gone, and your brain basically has to work around it.
He explains that while fighters may experience symptoms temporarily, they lose resilience with each hit to the head, which can eventually lead to longer lasting and even permanent injury. Chronic injuries such as chronic traumatic encephalopathy or CTE are a significant concern, and the risk of developing CTE increases with each head injury.
We don't know what the minimum threshold number of hits are. Getting hit in the head 3 to 5 times a week is not a normal thing, and you would assume puts you at risk for this disease.
This is related to other degenerative diseases like Parkinson's and ALS. CTE, like Alzheimer's, involves tau, a protein in nerve cells linked to dementia. However, researchers have identified a unique pattern of abnormal tau buildup in CTE that differs from other tau-related brain diseases, including Alzheimer's. Symptoms can include memory and thinking problems, confusion, personality changes, and erratic behaviors such as aggression, and suicidal tendencies. These symptoms may not emerge until years after the initial injury and are associated with a significantly increased risk of developing dementia later in life, potentially 2 to 4 times more likely.
So you're really getting set up for your brain to fall apart over time.
But sometimes the permanent neurological damage doesn't happen gradually, but all at once. And bleeding in the brain can ensure that.
And in fact, I can almost guarantee Slap League, if you were to CT scan these people, some people would have hemorrhages.
And unfortunately, sometimes this results in death, as it did for Artur Walczak on October 22, 2021, who suffered a cerebral hemorrhage and soon after passed away.
A monumental slap from Zalewski had severely damaged his brain, compelling doctors to put him into a drug-induced coma from which he would never wake up.
So, as you can see, slap fighting can have very serious consequences, and all the doctors I have featured, including myself, would agree that it should probably just be avoided altogether. Injuries are hard to prevent, and by the time any medical staff intervenes, the damage is often already done. That said, if the competition is going to take place, there are warning signs to watch for that indicate a traumatic brain injury, such as the Moro reflex.
The reflex is found in babies. Basically, when a baby falls, it's a natural reflex, it's a defense mechanism, it's something very primitive that is protective against injury when there's a fall that happens automatically.
As Dr. Hilden explains, there are primitive reflexes that are usually masked in our daily activities. However, when the brain becomes disorganized due to a strike, those reflexes can emerge from the brainstem and spinal cord, similar to the reactions we have when we lose our balance or stagger to prevent injury.
The arms and the legs come up, and he's now posturing.
An indication of serious brain injury.
I would hope any officials at the event would recognize these distressing signs and halt the competition if necessary. One shocking example is Courtney Olsen, who fell and had her eyes roll back in her head after being struck by her competitor Sheena Bathory, leaving the crowd gasping. In an interview, Olsen stated that after regaining consciousness, she stood up to reset at the table, but lost consciousness again and has no recollection of doing a forward roll. And these memory issues persisted well after the competition, a year and counting actually. So yes, you can not only lose consciousness, but you can lose your memory as well. While I may have portrayed it as a complete mess of a sporting competition, the introduction of slap fighting on mainstream networks, even if it's primarily to maximize media-related profits for organizers, required legitimization, which in turn necessitated at least some rules and regulations. It was no longer a backyard brawl in which fighters were surrounded by and often held up by their entourage to force them to keep going.
This obviously prevents the body's defense mechanism of shutting down or being knocked out from doing exactly what it is there to do.
In late 2022, the Nevada Athletic Commission, or the NAC, became the first regulatory body in the United States to officially recognize it as a sport, bringing it to Vegas.
Actually, a lot of the medical boards that are involved in combat sports are upset. They did not think that the Nevada State Athletic Commission should approve this. Some of the biggest names in combat sports fighting were very, very strongly against this getting approved.
Key members of these boards are out here advocating for fighter health and brain injury awareness, and the NAC, likely seeing it as a business opportunity, overlooks its slim qualifications for being an actual sport, puts in a few negligible health parameters, and says, go for it.
But you have sold your ethics. You've denied everything that you stood for.
What are these safety measures in place? A few include recovery time between slaps and having medical staff on site. They even use spotters to reduce injury.
They have a spotter here to try to reduce the amount of head injury by trying to prevent his head from striking the ground in a hard fashion.
Sure, the floor can be hard for the head, but you know what else is? A strike to the freaking face, bro. Ultimately, these safety measures don't address the core issue of the sport. The fact that the brain is literally being gradually beaten to a pulp with each and every undefended slap.
But I also want to talk about the role that the slap league plays in really undermining the issue of combat sports in general, and why it's a problematic money grab by greedy promoters, and the athletes themselves in the long run are going to suffer.
So, what do you think? Does this reflect a genuine public interest in an emerging sport, along with a sincere effort from media companies, medical officials, and athletic commissions to ensure its safety? Or is it simply a money grab? If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave us a comment and give it a big thumbs up to feed the algorithm. If this is your first time to the channel, welcome, and be sure to subscribe for more content that helps you understand human anatomy in an engaging way. We are now on our way to over 700,000 subs, and we would love to have you with us when we get there. If you didn't like the video, that's okay, but be sure to let me know why in the comment section down below. I read as many of the comments as I can, and we use your feedback to make our videos better for you. Don't forget to follow my gym, Human 2.0 Fitness, for free right here on YouTube, where we post content that helps you move better and prevent injury. Or its sister channel, Human at Home, where we teach you how you can be healthy right where you live. Otherwise, as always, that's been a word from Dr. Chris, not your everyday ortho, where we see one, do one, teach one.